Hey everyone, welcome to DMG's podcast, Bootstraps in Business. I'm Savannah Jones with Stephen Hodges, and we've been talking with candidates for governor of Oregon lately, and we're hearing a lot of the same responses in regards to issues facing businesses and the state of Oregon. They revolve around crime, houselessness, and a change in leadership. So today, we're going to be speaking with Marc Thielman. Marc, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having me.
We appreciate it. The preliminaries are coming up May 17th, and a lot of people know you, but a lot of people don't know you. So why don't you just give us a little bit of your background, and then we'll jump into why you're stepping into the ring for governor of Oregon and how you're different and how you see Oregon and businesses here in Oregon changing and evolving and growing and heading in a more positive direction.
Well, I appreciate that. So just for those who don't know me, I'm most known as the school superintendent in Alsea School District that kept the school open K through 12 during COVID without any cases of COVID all year, traced back to the classroom as a source, which was a monumental achievement in the sense that because I had some political connections, I've done some legislative work for 10 years, working with Democrats and Republicans, mostly in the Senate because the House is a little squirrely. I don't know if you've ever worked with House representatives, but there's a lot of them, and they change often. So just working with Senate in both parties, tremendous amount of dysfunction, but I was able to get enough support to put a little pressure on Governor Brown to allow for small schools to stay open, and 250 kids or less, and Alsea is a small charter school. We have a lot more kids than that, but a lot of ours are online. So it was a perfect storm. Instead of opening K-3, like the governor strongly recommended, we opened K-12. And kids didn't have to stay at home, and families were supported, and it made a huge difference for kids. But the government tried to close us down, and they kept changing the rules to close us down. And that caused me to take a look at their data. And so I uncovered some really concerning things. I learned that the government was not telling us the truth about PCR tests, about how they were identifying. I found out that the flu was very real. They were just calling it COVID. And so I did a whistleblower deal 12/18. And just, 4 or 5 days later, Governor Brown panicked, and she said, surprised everyone, including the teachers union, that schools will be open in January, which was my demand. And so when you get through an experience like that, you realize just how broken the system is. And remember, I grew up in business, Easy Loader Boat Trailers in Spokane, Washington. My father was an owner and partner, of course. And when you grow up in manufacturing, you grow up in a culture of results. Facts matter. Telling people the truth really matters. You can't lie about your bottom line in business and say you have money you don't have. But I learned in this state of Oregon, in politics, you certainly can. And that's what our progressive friends were doing. So I know that's a long answer, but I wanted people to have the full breadth. I became famous after that, as you guys know, because I took on Governor Brown again in the fall. We started doing 3 to 5 day testing. I called the Department of Health or the Benton County Department of Health, but also the Oregon Health Authority, and notified them that their policy was wrong. It didn't fit the new variant, and that the quarantine issue was going to undermine the governor's mandate to get kids connected to in-person learning. And you would think Governor Brown would hail me as a hero because I was supporting her mandate. Instead, they said, Mr. Thielmann tricked us. And then they implemented test to stay. And this is what I'm saying. This government is always 3 steps behind. It's completely out of touch with parents, families, and in particular, it has a disdain for small and medium-sized or family-owned businesses. It has a disdain for family-owned farms and ranches, multi-generational farms and ranches. And it has a very kind of an anti-prosperity platform. And more and more people are becoming aware of it. And so, for example, in my campaign, I've got about 100 plus volunteers, and a little over half of them are former Democrats, and I'm a Republican running as a conservative. And so, for your listeners to understand, something's going on. Somebody's not listening to the people.
Well, kind of double down there. I didn't know that. The first thing you said about, you didn't have any outbreaks. Zero. So I saw the reports that you had, lifted the mask and, in person and all that.
Yep.
But I never saw a follow-up. Kind of maybe changing gears a little bit. So, right now you're in a primary. I think it would be good for everybody here. What would your plan be for Oregon businesses? Because of the pandemic, obviously the rioting, all that has gone on in the past, few years, a lot of Oregon businesses, small businesses especially, they're struggling. I think that's been brought out pretty clearly. So what would be your plan going forward to help Oregon and the business community?
Well, I think the most important thing to do, and I'm going to sound like a broken record, but the first thing you want to do is tell people the truth. What Governor Brown did with COVID was the first thing she shut down, I think we all remember, short of schools, was what? Small businesses and churches. And that's fascinating to me because small business is the number one employer. She called a lot of small businesses non-essential, but all of the big box stores, Amazon, others, who happen to overly fund Democratic campaigns, they all got to stay open. And so here's Governor Brown, who professes to love Oregon, to love Oregonians, to love the working Oregonian. And any Democrat listening to this podcast should take heed, take a minute and really reflect on what I'm about to share. Love is understood in the world by the fruits of your behavior based on where your heart is. And where was her heart? Her heart was not behind kids and families. It was not behind small business and medium business, or she wouldn't have closed them all and declared them not essential. This is the same party that says, that there's too many people on the earth, and they just put up billboards saying stop having children. You cannot be any more insane than that, because that's a lie. Human beings are the greatest form of potential, and human beings are most employed in this state by small and medium-sized businesses. So you can't profess to love the average Oregonian when you're closing down a huge percentage of their livelihood and breaking up their culture and isolating them. And that's small business is one of the reasons I chose to take the huge risk to run for governor. I've always been a scrutinized superintendent. When I was a superintendent, I was the only publicly declared conservative superintendent out of 197 school districts. They purposely run conservatives out or drive them underground. It's a hostile superintendent environment to be in, and I stood my ground. I had my school district, I had the support of the school board. And so we had a business model in our school. That's why it grew 500% during COVID. So 500%, so around 200 kids when we started, around 1,000 kids when I resigned. That was a direct result of us applying business model. We have a new market. So we created Learn at Home Oregon, K-8 program that had limited screen time. And then when all the other schools were saying parents don't sit down with your kid, we brought parents in and said, please participate. And I want to bring that same open relationship to restoring small business and medium-sized businesses. And it's about access. So what I want people to understand is when they vote for Marc Thielman, what they're doing is they are saying, this is the relationship I want moving forward. So every small business person has a vested interest in supporting my campaign because I'm going to do crazy things. And you guys want to hear some radical stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Here we go.
Okay. Well, in order to start a business, you need access to capital.
Yep.
Okay. Well, it's difficult to get capital in this environment. See, so one is we're going to make capital access open. So the government can do a lot to change those rules, especially for young entrepreneurs who have a tough time getting established. Number two, things like depreciation when you buy equipment. I'm talking into this microphone. I'm sure you had to let them know that. Well, one of the things that this government does is they say, well, you have to spread it out over 5 to 7 years, and then they take a little fee off all that based on your inventory. Well, to me, that's double taxation. So we're going to get rid of all that. We have to allow businesses to decide when they need capital. So if they buy a new truck that by the way is more carbon efficient, they're not going to be able to buy a new truck if they have to wait 5 to 7 years to depreciate the value of that. Especially if you're a small business in the first 5 to 7 years of your operation. So we are going to change the rules. You get 1 to 3 years. You can choose that. You can click that box. So if you buy a $50,000 truck, you can write that off on your end of the year tax bill. That capital comes back to the business. Well, what do they do with it? They use it to continue to grow and invest in the business. What does that mean? That means that they're investing money and they're purchasing things. It depends on what the business is, but let's say they're an auto shop. They're going to buy tools. They're going to hire another mechanic. They're going to expand their operation. And what does that do? It provides another job. It builds another relationship. And it provides prosperity for that struggling or startup business. Prosperity that creates this engine, this economic wheel. And so access is the key word. And what this government has done is continued to make it more and more difficult, one, to start a business, but two, to access those opportunities and that prosperity. So, I mean, that's the general one. The other one is we absolutely have to follow through with the 30-year promise to build a container depot in Coos Bay. We have to expand our ports. All of our ports should be operating 100%. Right now, about 70. Why? We have miles of ships off the coast of California and up north by Seattle. See, and so I want people to understand that this government is broken. It does not support small and medium business because they see that as capitalism. They see that family or that small business owner who, by the way, has a right to make a living. That's a natural right. They see that business owner as either a source of taxation or a predator preying upon people, forgetting all the fact that none of us go into any store, none of us engage in any transaction that we don't want. If I want a Monster drink, I know it's bad. That's my choice. I go and I get a Monster drink, and then I engage in a willful two-way transaction. Well, and they want to say that that's somehow predatory.
Yeah, I didn't know about the Monster.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Yeah,
I outed myself.
I'm not a Monster connoisseur or Red Bull. I have other issues. I think kind of going back, have you had any people predict what by removing kind of that red tape or allowing people to claim whatever they buy, their goods, services, what that would do to the economy, how much money that would actually put back in?
Well, billions of dollars.
Right.
And in billions, like in probably tens of billions. The piece is look what this government does. They have a verified habit. They create a budget. They estimate how much money the economy will generate in the coming 2 years based on assumptions. They then look at all their myriad of taxes, and then they say, oh, we're not going to collect enough. So then they purposely underestimate what they're going to collect, whether it be the CAT tax or this retrograde business tax of 17%, which is all crazy, by the way. So you close businesses down and then you tax them retroactively. It shows you the hostility of this government. And then they build a budget based on that. They pass it. And, of course, they go out and say, we don't have enough money. We've got to raise taxes. We've got to raise, and for some taxes that the legislature can raise, they do so based on that bad information. And what happened this last session? We were in the first year of a 2-year budget, and they overcollected to the tune of $2.4 billion. I'm going to say that again, $2.4 billion. Now, did they give that back to the taxpayer?
Some of it, right, comes back in a kickback, I believe.
Well, it goes into some of it goes into a kicker, but
Right.
$1.4 billion they reappropriated back into the budget to fill assumed gaps. See, it's called lying. This government lies. They use a form of lying called half-truth, and half-truth is awful because it divides. See, it puts people in Camp A versus Camp B based on what they want to believe. The reason why my campaign has been a big surprise to a lot of I call it the wokeites, if you will, Governor Brown and other progressives. And make no mistake, they've been working very aggressively to try to stop the momentum. If there's any candidate they're afraid of, I guarantee you it's me. Because I'm doing something that is anathema to progressive politics. I'm telling people the truth. They really do underestimate their budget coming out of the Legislative Revenue Office, if you want to know who the culprits are. A guy like Tobias Reed, who's also running for governor, he is not truthful. He contributes and participates in the lie. So we need a real change.
Well, it's 2022, and I think that's the majority of responses we've heard and received from small business owners and medium business owners and people who are trying to earn a living here is 2022 is a year for pivot. We need something different than what we've had for the last 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. What do you see in regards to houselessness? We're at a lot of people feel a stage of crisis with the homelessness in the city of Portland, but also the state.
Well, in terms of affordable housing, this government, again, engages in half-truth. You know, they roll a couple $100 million and they talk about all these projects. Then they go to their state-approved list of their friends and their contributors, and then goes through an RFP process. But somehow their friends and contributors get it. And then those companies charge maximum fees. Counties charge maximum fees. The projects drag out. It's 18 months just to get a basic permitting process through at great cost. Okay, and no houses are being built. I mean, this is revolutionary. Let me tell you a quick story. So we opened up a preschool. I bought a house across the street. We had to move our preschool because the district was growing. This is a few years back. And the county administrator came out. I think his name was Joe, and he came and visited me, and he didn't know about my little preschool project. Well, in order to open up a preschool, you have to get a conditional use permit. So when I applied for that, they said, it'll be at least 18 months before this process is finished. So you can't open your preschool. And I was like, well, we have 9 days. And county administrator, that school is going to be open in 9 days. So I need a permit. So anyway, sure enough, I had a meeting the next day, and they were going to expedite some stuff. And some guy, I don't want to name his name, but it starts with an L, and kind of a Lance, I think his name was. I won't use his last name, but he decided that this was evil. He was a wokey guy, and that I was bad. And so he tried to obstruct the process. And so I went back to Alsea, and I wrote a nice email, and I sent it to all the county commissioners, all the county administrators, senators. Sent it to Governor Brown's office. I think it was Lindsey Capps was the official, and to hundreds, about a little over 100 other people I knew that were just kind of important people. And I wanted to know why Lance hates poor people in Alsea and their kids. I had
stirred the pot.
Yeah, the school opened on time and under permit.
But why didn't he want you to open, whoever this was, to open a preschool? I don't, like, was there any reason given?
No.
No, just.
Yeah, apparently we were supposed to have called him first.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
But it did open.
Of course.
That's good. Yeah,
And
so you have a habit of getting things done.
Yeah.
I like that.
Isn't this what we need in government?
Right. Yeah.
So
that goes back to homelessness, right?
Yeah.
I mean, when you see
where are the houses?
Right. Where are the homes, right?
I've heard it for 6 years.
Yeah.
Okay. They put almost $1 billion in it. Where are they? Do you know where they are? Do they have a sign up?
I do not know where they are.
This is when you know your government, no offense, sucks. When you see hundreds of millions of dollars going out the door, massive overtaxation, hostility in terms of regulation, depreciation policy, everything that harms the little business. Because the giant Amazons, they've got a whole staff for these things. They can afford those regulations, but small business can't. And then you never see the housing developments go up. Do you know that in Benton County, near our Alsea, I said this to the county administrator, Joe. I said he was all proud that they finally got this apartment complex going up just outside of Corvallis, between Corvallis and Philomath. And I didn't know, but I just assumed. I said, well, Joe, when did that developer first apply for permit to build? 7.5 years ago. He was proud of it. 7.5 years ago. I said, really? So it took 7.5 years before he could drive a nail or put a road in Yep. That's insane.
And I do know that that's true. It does take a long time to build, as I'm doing a remodel.
Why?
It took, 2.5 years to actually get permitted from Washington County.
Yeah.
I know, and everybody says the same thing. Talking to my builder, and they're like, yeah, this is where we are. And it made me wonder, how do we build things anymore? I'll read they're going to build a new I-5 bridge or this, that. And I'm like, how? I mean, how are you going to get it done? because apparently we can't build. That's how it feels. Whether
Well,
that's right or wrong.
You absolutely
that's
can't build.
right.
But here's my point. You can't build because of the government.
Right.
The problem at every step of the way, if you're just trying to remodel a bathroom, it shouldn't take you 6 months to get a building permit or an inspection.
Right.
But it does. Why? Well, they can never answer the why question. Why is metaphysical? It says what is real.
Mm-hmm.
And what I'm saying is this is something the government has done because it's a broken culture. It's a culture that says you will bend a knee and you will be on my timeline. How dare you not call me before you bought a house to convert into a preschool? All right? Well, this is a free country and a free state. And if we had followed their whatever bend the knee protocol, it would have been 2 years almost before that preschool opened. That's insane. Parents need preschool now. Affordable housing needs to be built. But you know what the government never does? Because I'll answer your question directly. You ever notice they never say what the price of an affordable house is? Why not? So I'm going to ask you, what is an affordable house?
No idea.
Well,
I mean,
I would think it'd be.
I know, okay, on talking to people, anything under 250 probably, in that range. But as far as what the government considers an affordable house, I don't know. I know what they mean by affordable housing as far as, a rent would go for somebody to pay or not have to pay. Sure. I have an understanding of that. But actually how much they cost, I don't know. I don't know that we ever get that, right?
Well, a $100,000 30-year loan with 3% down on an FFA first-time home buyer, you're looking around between $800 and something a month. You throw a little escrow in there. At worst case scenario, if your local property taxes are high, you might be $1,000 a month. Rent is on average higher than that.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
So, if we were a good government that loved people in the way that we say we do, we would, one, name the price. And then we would say, which barriers do we have to get out of the way to make sure that we can build quality housing, okay, that is good for first-time home buyers, young families in particular, maybe single moms and dads, right? Maybe people who've been renting for 30 years and always had a dream of owning a house. Wouldn't that be a nice way to set something up so that they could afford it? And we would say, okay, well, let's say that price is $160,000. Okay, then you say, how soon can we build it? So the county should be saying, hey, we have some county land, we have some state land, we're going to cede the land as part of the project for low cost. We're going to bring a developer in. We're going to grease the process, and we're going to waive the fees. So in Lane County, where I live, if you want to build a 2-bedroom, average size house, maybe 1,300 square feet, which isn't huge. That's not a Taj Mahal. On average, it's going to cost you $37,000 in fees, permits, and planning and occupancy. So if you're a developer and you want to build 100 of those homes, you have to pass $3.7 million off onto the new buyer. And that's before you put in a street or a curb or paid that part of the process. And you can expect around anywhere, a fast project would be 3 years for a developer to get permission to build. The average is 5 to 7. So if we're going to solve the affordable housing problem, you know what we have to do? If we're actually going to solve or address the homeless situation or the lack of affordable housing, we actually have to build affordable houses.
Right.
I know that sounds crazy. I know. I'm sorry for the
tiny
crazy
homes.
Not tiny homes. Tiny homes aren't good for families.
Right.
But remember, this is the Progressive Democrat Party that put 3 billboards up. I think it was on 205, at least the ones that I saw, that said, "Stop having children if you love the earth."
Yeah, I mean, I saw the. Did you? Yeah, we saw those. I think, for me, I didn't understand the point of the billboard. I mean, it really, I'm looking at that going, why would you put that up? I mean, freedom to everybody, fine. I mean, it's your freedom to put it up. I never did personally understand that. I didn't even know who was behind it. But then again, I look at it and I go, well, that's Portland.
Well, you know what I said to my wife?
Hmm.
As we were driving by and I read that. I said, well, no wonder they hate me. We've had 9 kids.
Nine. You should have left with that. Led with that. Yeah, I mean, 9
explains why Governor Brown's so upset with me.
Ironically, I'm baby of 9, so
Right.
So no, I get it. So yeah, that's 9. Wow,
Yeah.
congratulations.
Christmas is busy.
Wow. Yeah,
It will
you're
continue to be too as the years go by.
Well, and I still have 2, that are in basically high school. One's in 8th grade, one's in sophomore. But I did not know this. I learned something from Governor Brown just last week in a statement that came out of from one of her minions that said that children do not belong to their parents. You get a guy like Newt Bueller, who used to be a Republican. Now he's apparently backing Betsy Johnson, and he referenced some of my comments as extreme. You know what the comment was that Newt Bueller thought was extreme? I said kids belong to their parents. I mean, this is radical talk here. I know this is crazy talk. But here's the absurdity of something. Kids are part of a community, sure, because Governor Brown says kids belong to the community. And that's why we need to invest in these big progressive projects, right? Well, if that's true, then I decided to test it, action research. So my daughter called and said, Dad, I've got a dance coming up and I'm going to need some money for a prom dress, whatever the dance is, And
Did you have her call the governor?
Well, I told her that. I said, honey, I'd love to throw a couple $100 in to get you a beautiful dress and show you how much I love you. And I'm sure you're going to look amazing. And, you're a beautiful young lady and you're super smart and you're confident and your dad loves you. The problem, I said, so if you need money for that dress, please go to the community or go to the government. Now, how do you think she took that?
Not well.
You know what she said? Yeah. She said, Dad, I'm your daughter. Not according to the progressive Democrats.
Right.
That you don't belong to me according to them. You belong to them. So go get them to pay for it. Now, granted, obviously, I contributed for her dress. Don't get me wrong. But she didn't appreciate the humor at all.
No, she didn't. She's got a dance to go to. She's like, I don't have time for jokes.
No, she just started with the dress. There's also hair and shoes coming.
Yeah.
So
right, yeah.
Trust me.
Right. And did you get any help with the hair and shoes? I mean, anything?
Yeah, well,
right.
It's a team effort, right?
Well, okay, so kind of switch it up a little bit. I want to know where you fall on this. The Portland Diamond Project, they're out trying to bring baseball to Oregon. And baseball to Oregon, Major League Baseball team would, probably change things up a little bit, provide jobs. Would you support that, A?
Of course.
And B, would you be willing to put public funding more than actually what's on the books now from 2002 towards building a new stadium?
Well, a couple of things. So obviously, public-private, you're talking about public-private partnerships.
Yeah.
So public-private partnerships are nothing new. They go way back to the 19th century.
Absolutely.
Okay? They've happened before with the railroad building and all that. So they can be very, very good or they can be not so good. Really depending, again, go back to that, where's your heart? What's the fruit of your work? So for me, my heart is with the families and the children and the parents and the grandparents of Oregon. And it just so happens that there are a lot of people in Oregon that like baseball.
Yeah.
A lot of people. And, that's why they say it's the great American game.
Live baseball.
Oh, yeah, they do. Live baseball.
Look, watching baseball on TV is fine, but being there at a Major League Baseball game is unbelievable. And, you've got an unbelievable setting where you got Mount Hood, you have Mount St. Helens in the backdrop. Yeah. And I've always wondered, look, we have you've got a group right now that is, they're going to privately fund it looks like, or try to.
Sure.
Right. And if you have a private company doing that, they're only doing it for one reason. There's good money in it, and they know it, right? And so, which makes me wonder, as just a citizen, well, why not? Why not actually throw up state funds? Because it's providing jobs. It's going to provide cottage industry all around wherever that ballpark is. Mm-hmm. It happens during a time when the Blazers are done, right? They're not in season. So I've always wondered that. And before, when we tried, it was, the Montreal Expos were going to move, and you had, I think it was Grand Ron wanted to invest, but then we wouldn't allow a casino, which, okay, there's casinos everywhere now, but all right.
Yeah, true story.
But it makes me wonder, why not? I mean, if there's money to be made there and that is going to help a community wherever it may go, whether it be downtown Portland, wherever, I don't know where they would go, but why not do that? And
so there's a couple of ways to do public-private partnerships. You can do it by public permission too. That the government can say, you know what, we are going to give you this break or this incentive, or we're going to streamline the process so you can build the stadium sooner. It'll cut your costs, and then we will be paid back through the proceeds of having a major league team and all of the business it generates, because the government obviously gets a piece of that through the taxation, the process of doing business. So the thing is, think about that. And the thing is, you can do a combo of the two. My point is that if the public is investing in something that they say is good for the state and good for the economy and good for the community and good for the culture, because baseball is a unifying thing. It's not a divisive thing. Baseball, football, sports are kind of the great unifier, if you really think about it. People that hate each other get together and watch the Super Bowl, right? Pretty soon they're rooting for the same team. You wouldn't know it. And that's the power of our great American culture. We really are a unifying melting pot place. So I think culturally, Oregon's ready for something like a Major League Baseball team. And we ought to at least offer some incentives on one side. And if we put taxpayer dollars into the project, the people need to be paid back over time. And that's the way it should be.
And wouldn't that help with the infrastructure as well?
Of course it would.
Because I've been reading some studies, wherever the ballpark would go, but the infrastructure that would come with it, right? And it would have tax revenue to put towards that as well. Also, baseball is a little bit different than other sports, where the visiting team that plays here, they're paying taxes here.
Yep.
Right. And that could go to education and other things that we have to help with the system. So yeah, I've always wanted, that was more of a personal, sorry, I'm a baseball fan. So
well, I think it's a good point.
Well, a lot of people are.
Well,
Right.
but it highlights a little bit of that. And baseball's a big industry. It's multi-billion-dollar industry. Let's be real. It's worldwide. It's in almost every continent. I don't think the Penguins are playing it in Antarctica, but it's everywhere. And I think that's a little bit of what you were highlighting, is why not in Oregon? It's everywhere else. See?
Absolutely. And then, okay, so pivoting again, because that's what I do. Do you
Yes.
want me? I don't know. I'm just kind of hogging time all of a sudden. Here I am. She usually gives me a little backhand. It's very quick. We never have it on camera. So one of the things that recently popped up for me reading about the mining of lithium. In Oregon, I think it's, gosh, I have to read this again. I think we're number 2 in the world, but number 1 in the United States for lithium deposits. And it's right there in the border, I believe, California, Oregon, if I'm not mistaken. And the funny thing about it is NPR put out a story about that, kind of a story that was, very positive about mining lithium. But the irony is mining lithium is worse for the environment than drilling for oil. And we won't allow that off our Oregon coast because it's bad for the environment. So what is, number one, what is your take on mining lithium? Number 2, would you challenge where we are with environmental, like what we can drill for? And I think federal government has to do with, no drilling off our coast, stuff like that. And I'm not saying I'm advocating for that. I'm just saying, where would you stand on all that?
Well, I'm a huge proponent of allowing access. There's that word again. We have to allow access of our people. So if there are people that have a passion for mining, or mining companies that are looking for new deposits to mine, especially something as important as lithium, as we, the slowly transition over time to more electric everything, battery-powered everything. Lithium is powerful, and that's the why here. What people need to know is that a lot of the lithium deposits we have here in Oregon were sedimentary, and so they're spread out in a sense, and they're not necessarily very deep in the ground. So that's why it's you have to do some surface mining, strip mining kind of thing, and you have to collect a lot of material to get a small amount of lithium proportionately. So that kind of mining is unpopular because it's kind of an eyesore, but it doesn't have to stay an eyesore. There's a lot of things that old mines have become in other places in the country. They have become great places, swimming holes, all kinds of things over time. And so the thing is, but when you look at the
great swimming hole project.
Yes.
That I didn't have to see that. That was
I'm a big fan.
very, very well played, sir. That got me.
You can put fish in them later, salmon and things. And so the thing is, you'll have to look into the future. So again, why would mining be a good idea? And well, the Chinese have the lion's share of the world's lithium reserves and sources. And we need to look down the road, and we need to have a national security thing, and we need to look at where our deposits are. And we got this huge resource in Oregon, and it fits with the values of trying to, clean air, water, and all that, in the sense that there's a lot of people that truly believe, and they believe very strongly, even Republicans that live in some urban areas where an electric vehicle makes sense to them. Okay, great. I'm here for markets. If people make a transaction choice to support an electric vehicle, as they're doing increasing numbers, I think it should be banned for bikes because, let's be real, these electric bikes are just too convenient. Right. But my point is that the market, there's no cap on the market right now or demand. And so we absolutely should bring our miners in, people that know how to mine. And we should allow them access to those reserves. And then we should facilitate things that allow small miners to mine smaller deposits of lithium. So you can do one giant eyesore mine, or you can do a bunch of little ones that are easier to restore. And that's the piece. So you have to have the vision and understanding of that. This is why the why is so important. And if you have more small miners mining and delivering their ore to processors, because somebody will come in to process the ore, and that creates family wage jobs. It's a huge booming industry. Now you have more families supported and more small entrepreneur miners, prospectors, if you will, who have access to that industry. And what we're doing is we're investing in ourselves, and then we are paying ourselves, and then we're providing a resource that fits with the growing trend in markets, which is battery-operated everything. Okay? There's a hairbrush now that's battery-operated. It's got a lithium battery in it.
I know nothing about said hairbrush.
Yeah, I saw it on TV. I was mesmerized.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, you can even turn on the blade and it'll cut your hair.
I can't even bald correctly.
Yeah, I know.
It's not okay.
Yeah, it's not analog anymore. See, so I hope that made sense. See the relationship that creates.
Yeah.
But the state wants to do the opposite. They want you to buy some giant permit that only wealthy mine companies can afford. It locks out.
And so, kind of along that same vein, when we get into talking about timber, timber industry kind of, has been gone, right? But it wasn't. It just went to, I believe it's 5 or 7 different family or companies. So, what would you do with the timber industry? I have to ask that question. Nobody really talks about it right now.
We just had the timber unity debate yesterday or last night, and I was interested. I remember one of my competitors said, "Well, there's not much we can do to return timber industry jobs." Well, that's not true. See, that's a half truth. That would be true if we had no will. But what's burning our forests? And ironically, the only quote I got, even though I had tons of feedback that said I was extremely strong in the debate, the Oregonian, which is a woke kind of they're nervous about a guy like me. They wrote my one comment where I told people the truth. 12,800 years ago, we had mammoths and sloths and bears and saber-toothed tigers and giant animals. And what did they do? They kept all the trees, especially in the valleys, clear. Mammoths ate lodgepole pine. They loved it. Mastodons and all that. Well, they're gone now. And what happened is people came in, Native Americans, and what did they do in the Willamette Valley? Well, they cleared it of fir trees, and they left the oaks because the acorns were a food source. And then why did the settlers come to the Willamette Valley? Why were the fur trappers here?
Timber.
Because it wasn't a forest.
Right.
Okay? It was a grove and grassland and scrubland, which are vehemently more productive for things like elk, deer, bear, cougar, all wolves, all the things that
food.
are food, human habitat. And the settlers came here because they didn't have to clear 4 foot, 5 foot round trees. See, all that came on the fringes of the valley.
Right.
And so the piece is you have to tell people the full truth. So, but we don't have mammoths now, keeping our forest clear. So what Mother Nature does is she has a safeguard. It's called the burn cycle. So if you let it pile up, she'll burn it out. Well, the problem is we don't live in that state of nature anymore. It's not safe to let it burn out naturally. So we have these new mammoths, sloths. Well, sloths is a bad term. That's like, commensurate with not wanting to work.
I've been called worse.
Yes. But we have these new large animals.
Right.
They're called human beings that can go in and we can now manage our forests the way that they had evolved to be managed. See, we can fill that niche. And we ought to. Think of the biomass industry potential alone. If we get in there, and I mean, biomass is already a growing industry in spite of a lot of government push to slow it down. But, and I don't know, this is going to be another crazy talk, but biomass alone, did you know you can burn pulp and wood and make electricity?
I did not.
Did you know that? You can actually burn wood and it creates heat and energy. This is revolutionary talk, I know.
I'm trying to go with the jokes, but man, I'm breaking.
I'm making fun of the people on the left.
I know you are. Yeah.
I got to be careful with the humor.
Right.
Sometimes people don't like it.
No, I got it. Yeah. I did not know that. No.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, with the forest fires that happened, right? And have we really been cleaning our forests? I mean, that was the aha moment, I think, for everybody, right, left, independent, didn't matter. You see these forests burning, and everybody admits, yeah, well, maybe we should clean our forests, right? So, but where are we with that?
Well, we're not cleaning our forests.
Right. That's kind of my point.
So here's what's
it's talked about, and then it seems like it's been left to happen again.
Well, almost half this state is under the control of the federal government, either with BLM or various federal agencies, federal forests, et cetera. And what the federal government did with spotted owl and all that, as we know, is they came in and they shut down access to logging. They give very few contracts comparatively to the late 70s, early 80s. And the issue is now we've had 35, 40 years of fuels that have accumulated. And so 80% of our catastrophic fires in the last 5 years have been on federal land. Do you think there's a connection? So have we been managing those forests safely? No. Have we been managing them commensurate with the way those trees and forests evolve? No. And here's why fuels accumulate. It's not in the interest of a healthy environment to allow that. But species compete for habitat, see? And so there were forces that kept the trees from winning out. They were those giant animals I was talking about, see? And it's true in Siberia as well. You can read the studies. It's fascinating. So we need to go in and restore balance to our forests. And here's why. We have a declining elk and deer population in most areas of the state. And that is a directly correlative to the accumulation of fuels in federal forests. When forests get clogged with growth, there's less food supply produced because there's less light coming down for elk and deer to browse on. When you have clear cuts, you will see there's a higher concentration of elk and deer populations in private timberland areas. Why? They're there for food because clear cuts grow little plants and weeds. It resets what's called succession, where you take something back to bare dirt and it starts with grasses and weeds.
My yard at home is doing that right now, actually.
And you leave it long enough, you got a forest again.
Well,
right?
and I'll have elk and deer.
Yeah.
In this, I'm trying to get them to come back.
Well, so what does the government do? The government doesn't tell people the truth. Okay, the government doesn't say, we've really done a lousy job, and we're actually the cause of why we have no fish and declining elk and deer populations, why we're now restricting hunting and access to hunting. This government is anathema to our values here in Oregon. If you want more deer and elk, apply good science and management. And tell people the truth. It is no longer predatory to go in and manage our forests the way Mother Nature intended.
So now, would that be the federal, because you made the comment earlier, it's on federal land. Should our government or local government, governor, be pushing for the feds to manage the land.
Yeah, well, I'm going to do that.
That's what you would have to do. You couldn't. The state really couldn't do it, right? Or could we?
Well, another question that I never hear from any of my colleagues I'm running against for the Republican nomination is, when I say things like I'm about to say. So in Alsea, when it was very clear that masks did not provide the protection that we were told, but it was very clear that they were actually harming kids, what does an ethical superintendent leader, school leader do? Do you just knowingly keep kids being harmed? Do you just play along? Emperor's new clothes, hello? No. So I took it to my concern to my school board. School board voted 5-0 unanimously. You know what? We're taking back local control. We are not going to harm our kids. We're not going to be lied to. Do you guys like being lied to? I haven't met anyone yet on the campaign trail. I haven't even met a progressive. I even talked to Antifa, and they didn't like being lied to, which was weird because they were talking to me.
Time out. When did you meet Antifa? Wait,
down at the waterfront in Portland.
Okay, so you were talking to Antifa. Mm-hmm. Can we just take a minute here and hear about this conversation?
Well, they had identified our table.
Fair enough.
And then before enough of them got a mass, to start banging on things, I went over and talked to them, and they were calling us a Nazi gathering and all that. And I said, yeah, I understand that. I said, look, I only have one question for you. I said, do you guys like being lied to? And they were like, they looked back and forth at each other. And finally one young lady said, well, no, I don't like being lied to. I said, okay, well, I've never met anyone who did, so I'm not going to lie to you. Here's the reality. The reality is that we live in a diverse state and country, and that we don't all have to agree. But we all have a duty to be civil, and we all have a duty to be open, both with our hearts and our minds. So here's, if you guys can come and do your thing, I support your freedom of speech. And my encouragement to you is to be civil, because this 1,200 people here, they're not leaving. And boy, did they get that message, and they stayed farther. They were almost half a block away.
But was it, your conversation with them sounds like it may have been civil.
It was very civil.
Right.
But notice what I did. I said, I'm going to tell you the truth. These people aren't leaving. If you're going to be here to cause trouble or get violent, that's a mistake. See? Now, I said that out of care and love.
Right.
Because I didn't want trouble.
Right. You want to keep the peace and everybody coexist.
Yeah. And the thing is, when you speak with conviction like that and you tell people the truth, even people that hate you listen. Right. See? And where did we have the unity? Where was the unity in that conversation? It was upon agreement from both of us that none of us in that conversation liked being lied to.
And supporting freedom of speech on both sides.
Sure. Common value. See, he finds out that we're not so crazy different. See?
Yeah. All right. Changing gears a little. I'm just.
Yeah, keep going. Got off the head. So we were way off in the weeds on that.
So Intel. Mm-hmm. Intel opened up or announced Ohio. My question is going to be.
Gee, what a surprise.
Well, there's that. But I guess my question is around, for our local state government, our bread and butter is off taxes. People working, right? Like payroll tax.
Doing what again? What was it?
Working,
okay,
yes.
I just wanted
to. And so, when Intel announces they're going to, also open all these jobs over in Ohio, and then it was reported, I don't know the verified, but it doesn't get denounced that we didn't even talk to Intel. There wasn't even a conversation around opening yet another here. Mm-hmm. So do we have a business development team in our government, state government, to try to attract businesses here?
Well, all that exists in structure, but not in culture.
Fair.
So I'll tell the truth again. They're not allowed to do their job as a committee or as an advisory group to the governor, because if they break ranks with the narrative, they are canceled. Look what's happening in my campaign, okay? I had the full weight of the government come after me when we did that mass thing. And it continues to this day. Just this week, a contact of mine in the Department of Education, he said, man, they had a meeting about you, and they're going to make another run out. There's going to be another court filing from a disgruntled employee, and the government, they're working with that employee. That is the depths that this government goes to when they decide to cancel somebody. But I got news for everybody. I'm not only not going to be canceled, but they picked the wrong candidate to malign, because my heart is very big, and I will suffer the slings and arrows, and I will continue to tell people the truth. So what did Alsea generate? We were the first to break ranks. We gave parents their rights back. Then we honored their decision, whether they said, please keep my kids masked or not. Think of the value of that relationship, the validation that comes from that. We didn't pick sides. And then what happened? We proved and showed to the world that kids can be in schools without masks. And that's what's scary, because, 48 other states were doing that. And so you'd think it would be proven already. But we had to prove to this bias culture here in Oregon that
they're still coming after you, even though the mask mandate has been
it's
lifted.
all designed to try to disrupt my campaign.
Got it.
But here's the power of it: is these woke people, Governor Brown, they have a hatred that words cannot describe. And what they may not even be aware of is they don't mind lying, they don't mind half-truth, they don't mind accusation. Now, I've worked in Alsea for 11 years. 11 years. I've had hundreds of employees, and they're not talking to any of them. Why not? Because that's what the media should be doing. That's what the government should be doing. We should be applying those principles of, hey, there's two sides to every story, and we're not going to go out and put somebody's head on a platter until we allow the process to.
Has local media, have they reached out to you for an interview on what's going on?
Well, yeah, they always do on Thursday or Friday before they do a hit piece on Sunday. So I can't wait for Sunday morning. And guess what?
You're having good Sundays.
Oh, it's good stuff.
Right.
And but it's crazy stuff, And this is why the left always goes too far. They went too far with COVID. They held on to their narrative too long. And they have lost a tremendous amount of support, even from their own base. They produced Betsy Johnson. They created her. See? So they don't like Betsy. They certainly don't like me, especially because I'm a conservative. And my name is spelled Mark with a C. C stands for conservative. Also stands for common sense and Christian. Oh, radical talk. So the thing about it is again, we got to get back to our hearts being in alignment with our mind, and our heart and our mind in alignment with our words.
So how are you going to, 20, is it 20? I believe 20 other candidates, right?
19,
sorry.
Yeah, don't get ahead of yourself.
I rounded.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure somebody jumped in last week.
Prime number, 19.
Right. I just, rounded up. So how are you, how are you getting out? You have to be insanely busy right now, right?
Oh, beyond.
Right. So, last night you were at the timber deal. What's your schedule like right now,
Well, I'm leaving here to go to Columbia County for another gubernatorial panel, and then I have to get done with that and immediately go to Multnomah County and to their county panel. They're putting the governors in the end, and they made that arrangement out of kindness so that I could get from one to the other. There's no question that my campaign has really, really gained a lot of momentum. It's a grassroots campaign, and so I haven't taken any big dollars from Pfizer, unlike many of my competitors. And I've been pretty open and direct about telling people the straight up truth. Notice the why; it's powerful. And I'm getting recognized in all kinds of places, even towns I've never been now, because obviously the word is getting around. And I really, truly want to be the governor of natural resources. I want to be the governor that opens up Oregon, opens up our ports, creates a maneuver box that is advantageous to small and medium-sized businesses, that makes it easier for them. In other words, there should be less regulation on small business than there is on giant corporate entities. There should be less regulation on family-owned generational farms and ranches than there are on corporate-owned real estate investment farms and ranches. By the way, did you know that corporate farms and ranches have more erosion and more environmental issues? They use more pesticides than good stewards of multi-generational farms. And the reason is multi-generational farms are tied to the land, It's part of their heritage. They are good stewards. They want to leave it in a healthy state to the next generation. They want to keep it being productive. And so relationships are critical. And we have to get back to doing that. And I also want to model for people, I want to model for people how you stand in the arena. And you take the cuts and you take the hits and you maneuver, and recognizing that everybody's watching. Okay, and people can sit up in the crowd and they can criticize, well, you shouldn't have said that, or you shouldn't have said this. I'm okay with that. I even listen to it and I try to make amends. You're always trying to learn. If we're not here to upset people. At the same time, everyone seems to respect the courage it takes to step into the arena, to be that person. And I'm when it comes to standing in the arena and standing up for real values, for real access, so that young high school men and women can graduate from high school at 18, 19, 20 years old, and they can get a little fishing boat and they can go and join and be part of the crab fishery. Did you know that they're cut out because of government policy? They have to pay a huge amount of money. I think it's 15 or 50,000, somewhere in that range, just to get a permit to fish for commercial crab. Why? Please, somebody
Government.
tell me. Yeah, it's the government. Why? They were bought by large commercial fishing investment firms, who then passed laws to cut out the little guy. Why? There's not enough crabs. And here's the issue. It's like with the salmon issue, sportsmen versus gill netters, right? You remember that? That's been a big issue. It was an issue on the natural resource debate last night. The real problem isn't sportsmen versus. The problem is there aren't enough fish. If there's plenty of fish, we don't have a problem. You know why there's not enough fish? The government, the hatchery policies, the fact that they don't let every landowner along waterfront put in their own hatchery boxes, which they could be doing. The Native Americans get to do it. And thank God, because our native tribes, like the Siletz with eels and steelhead and salmon, they even put in eel ponds that you're not allowed to do that, see, because that, water, it alters some side stream. But Native Americans, fortunately, have been allowed to do that because of the cultural aspect. And thank God for our Native Americans, because there are all kinds of eels in the Siletz River now. After 10 years of the natives saying, no, we're going to start expanding and improving habitat for eels. It's part of our culture. And same with salmon and steelhead. We should be allowing everybody to do that, but we have these regulations and these restrictive aspects that, you can't touch the stream bed. Well, what are kids playing along a river? I mean, it's beyond stupid. So we're gonna, once again, access. We will have fish when I'm governor. You watch, 4 years, okay? You will see a huge improvement. We're gonna have reservoirs more full, because one of the reasons the reservoirs are so low is they're paranoid about late spring rains. Well, we've had late spring droughts. Not drought in the traditional sense. We've had a lot of late spring drought, with some areas down south accepted, but up here. And so the piece is, look at the genius of this. Get regulation out of the way. Allow our reservoir managers to make decisions and take appropriate risks so that we can have more water for farming and recreating, and support them in those decisions and communicate that to people.
Well, it sounds like you're running on a campaign of truth-telling, policy review and revision, because we've got a lot of broken policies and regulations. We're regulated to the hilt, so we can't get past the red tape to get anything done. Opening the doors to pro-business in Oregon, which I believe you said we aren't really doing. That's not really a thing that we're doing at this point in time. And leadership is dysfunctional. Things are broken and things have got to change. And I think overall, all through the state of Oregon and small businesses, medium businesses, rural farming, we are broken and we need change. And you want to step in. The first thing you do, first day in office, what would that be?
Well, obviously, we're going to do executive orders.
I mean, other than, popping the corks and such.
Well, the first thing we do is we get rid of the executive order for that weaponized DEQ for cap and trade. That's gone. We're gonna get our schools oriented back out into reading, writing, arithmetic, building resiliency in kids, not anxiety, and teaching character, not gender transition and racial division and all the CRT stuff. That's going to be gone, and that is the demand of the majority of parents. And we're going to put parents back in their natural place to be the curators of their children. Diversity requires that we do so, because this government wants everybody to be conforming. That's the opposite of diversity. We want people to be different, because that's where innovation, that's where creativity comes. That's where good thoughts and ideas and the pursuit of truth comes. So parents get to decide the values of their home, what church they want to go to, if any. They get to pick the pathway for their children regarding education, whether it's public school, private, parochial, online, or homeschool. And then I will stand in support of that decision without judgment. Okay, I trust parents. I trust everyday, hardworking Oregonians. I believe that they are capable, especially when they're told the truth, of making real decisions on their own without government force that benefit the community at large and themselves. And that's their right. That's the way it should be. South Dakota showed that. They never shut down. Christine Ohm said that. I trust the people. And all they did was tell the South Dakotans the truth. And I don't know, I have family roots in North Dakota. There's a rivalry.
I'm from North Dakota.
Yeah. So if South Dakotans can figure it out, guess what? I have a feeling Oregonians have a leg up. So look at the beauty of that relationship. Restoration, access, and individual liberty and freedom, in which parents and grandparents are honored and put in their place, that the important natural place. Because, parents raised their children before there was government, right? Go way back. So this current government is the opposite of that. Don't have kids, rent, don't own land. Everybody's going to do mass transit. Everyone's going to drive electric vehicles ahead of when technology can deliver them reliably. We're going to shut everyone down. Business is a source of predation. And if you've been successful, it's because you stole it from somebody else. Is that the relationship we want to continue? I'll let the voters decide.
One final question, actually two. So an important one and then a fun one. Cat tax. Would you make any changes to it? What's your thought about it?
That cat tax is, once again, it's a committee charged with designing a horse and delivered a camel. So the worst part about that is I had advised on a gross receipts concept a couple of years ago with Duncan Wise and the OBI group. And what they ended up passing with this cat tax was just a Frankenstein of crazy. I spoke out against it, even though it was supposed to fund schools. And the reason is that when I got a sneak peek of the analysis coming out of the Legislative Revenue Office, the first thing I noticed is that they had monkeyed with the decimal. And then I looked at the amount they said it would collect, $1.1 billion. And I was like, there's no way. This thing's going to collect at least $2.4, maybe $3 billion. And I protested to Democrat senators. And they looked at me like I was crazy. Well, no, these are the experts. It's only going to collect. I said, look, you're going to take too much money away from business. And that I said, it's going to raise costs of housing. It's going to raise costs of everything. This is insane. You need to fix the decimal. Well, they didn't fix the decimal. So I'm going to do everything in the power of my office to not over-collect on that cat tax. And where it has to be reformed or repealed. So like the floor needs to be raised to at least $10 million. So if you do $10 million or less, you don't pay any tax. Notice, what does that do? It advantages small business. What will giant construction firms do? They'll look for smaller excavation companies. And so then they don't have to charge the cat tax. See? How'd I do?
Well, we're not done yet.
Oh.
One very important question. Is a hot dog a sandwich?
I like to think it is. Was it invented in the United States? I think so.
It does have bread and it does have meat.
Yeah.
Yes.
But it's like a sandwich. It's like is a Ferrari a practical car? It's really
gets you where you need to go.
Yeah.
I mean, you were ready for that answer. Look at that. You were like,
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree.
She agrees. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, hot dogs in its own.
He says no.
It's in its
Right.
own category. because
Well, it's all about the condiment, right?
Right, right.
If you
It's
can't
like,
put mayo on it,
See,
it's a specialty sandwich
yes,
market.
exactly.
Right.
It's a specialty.
right? Yeah, it's specialty.
I love hot dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There
who
you go.
doesn't? Matter of fact,
Yeah.
hot dogs go well at a baseball game.
Right, but they don't. Yeah, they do. I agree. Clearly, I know a good hot dog. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know.
Well, I hope we didn't make too much sense today.
No.
Oh,
yeah,
well, we made
no,
a lot of
we're all
sense here.
good.
We made a lot of sense. We want to thank you very much for
Yes.
joining us
Thanks
today.
for having me.
Absolutely. We enjoyed the conversation, and we wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
And we'll be watching for the primaries on May 17th.
I can't wait. We just know everybody. It's Marc for Oregon. Marc with a C. C stands for conservative. MARC for Oregon. FOR. Make sure people check it out.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you, as always, for checking out DMG's Bootstraps and Business. If you'd like to find out more about our guests, DMG, or these podcasts, just check out the show notes. Thank you.